Orange leaders. Orange leaders.
Are we on? Are we on? Yes. What up, everybody? It's your boy Royce the Voice, Orange Click, Orange Leader. Shout out to K-Team. Speak your thoughts or lose your mind. And how y'all doing? Yes, it's the first day of winter. It is December the 21st, 2020. You dig? It's been a crazy month. It's been a crazy week, even though it just started. How's everybody doing today, by the way? I'm sorry, man. I'm in the middle of still sharing stuff on the page or whatnot, man. Just make sure everybody here and doing their thing. But for everybody that is here, you know what I'm saying? How are you during? How are you doing? How are you doing? Let me see who's on here real quick. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to BJ Anderson. Shout out to Shirley Trammell. Shout out to, I'm sorry, Shirley Temple. Shout out to Jamie. Shout out to Eva. You know what I'm saying? It's on right now and all that good stuff, man. Just want to make sure that y'all, like and share this. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot going on today. There's a lot going on today, man. And I know last week there was a lot of stuff going on. What's up, Nino Black? Up in the house. A lot of stuff going on last week. A lot of stuff going on for December and for just really for 2020. And I just want to take the moment real quick, just to say to everybody out there, like, we have seen it all. I said 2020 was like, a year of vision. And what I mean by that is, well, 2020 is supposed to mean vision, perfect vision, so to speak. You can see clearly. And I know for myself, 2020 was the year of vision for me because I've seen a lot of ups, I've seen a lot of downs, I've seen stuff that's happened here in America and here close, close home, and it's given me a little more insight into 2021 as we go into the next year. Even though it's going to be 2021, it's almost like 2020 again because we hadn't really lived that whole 2021, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to try to confuse y'all on that, you know what I'm saying? But just a little more aware of everything that's going to be popping off in 2021. I'm going to have my eyes a little more open in my surroundings, the people around me, creating better energy so I can have things gravitate towards me that are more positive, deal with some more internal issues. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I spoke on coping with your past and stuff like that. So, try to cope with those things, to get help from those things, or even talk to people about those. So, anybody that's, going through anything, can't get over a certain type of past in your life, I hope that you guys can get through all of that, you know what I'm saying, at the cusp of this year or next year. And I just pray that everybody has, a great year next year, because this is that day. Today is that day of that awakening and a transition, because we've all been through a lot. You feel what I'm saying? I went from a broken down truck to trying to get a new engine and getting that started back up. You know what I'm saying? And just bills stacking up, being behind on things. You feel me? Like, but through it all, came through the mud. You feel me? And still thinking positive about it. But shout out to everybody, you know what I'm saying? So what I want y'all to do right now, you know what I'm saying, before we get into this topic, shout out to Brenda Craig and Angela Sorrell. What's up? Sippings, I'm just gonna say your last name, Sippings, because I'm gonna say your name wrong. I want everybody to share this, you know what I'm saying? Share this, because I'm gonna be talking about something specific, but at the same time, it's really gonna touch anybody who's kind of going through this, you know what I'm saying? And I guess you can call it maybe a little history lesson. I don't know. Everything's not going to be coming off the dome. I'm usually good with that, but I always try to have my notes on the side just to have it as a reference and whatnot. But I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of explain the title. The title is called Rebuilding the Family. And if you were looking at the flyer that we had posted up right there, it kind of has like a certain order of operation, so to speak. It starts with the slave masters next to the slaves. It starts with Richard Nixon, Lyndon B. Johnson, next to the 60s and the families there, the black families. And then I kind of go down there to Reagan during that era of the 80s, a little bit of the 90s, because he was still lingering around through there. And, just the modern day lack thereof of the nuclear family, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So today we're going to be talking about rebuilding the family, and I'm going to be a little more specific by saying rebuilding the black family. So let me make this disclaimer, okay? Because I know a lot of times when we speak on these type of things, people ask, well, why don't we speak about everybody? Everybody's going through this, everybody's going through that. But I have to be honest, and I have to be upfront with you guys that there is, in particular, amongst everything else, but from what I know and within my culture, I know that there is a problem with the lack thereof of the nuclear family in the black communities and the poor communities. You feel what I'm saying? So that's what I'm going to be speaking more on. For those who know. For those who don't know, try to learn something. You feel what I'm saying? Because we all need to learn from each other. We all need to acknowledge what has happened in America's past, our dark past, and the lies that were told, and the history that was left out, the names that were left out in certain situations, to kind of make us say, well, just get over it. I can understand that, but it's hard to get over something that you may not know. So I tonight I do speak to the black families. I do speak to the lower income families, and I speak to the ones who have not grown up in poor families and maybe had a silver spoon, just to educate you guys on what the situation is. So once we all come together and learn that, we can all acknowledge that, and we can hold ourselves accountable for the next move that we make in the future. You feel what I'm saying? So before I get started on that, shout out to Josh Lovett, James Harden, LaDonna. You dig what I'm saying? And later on, I'm not going to be too long, you guys. You know what I'm saying? Really not going to be too long. I know I always say that, but usually we have a guest or something that just comes in when they want to, which I'll allow that to happen once I kind of get through this little feed right here. So once again, shout out to everybody. Please share, because when y'all do, it boosts us up in the algorithm, you know what I'm saying? And, I'm trying to put Telehome on the map, you know what I'm saying? 931, you know what I'm saying? Put us up on the map. There's very few of us doing this podcast thing just around in this area, you know what I'm saying? In the Middle Tennessee area. Shout out to Nino Black and Black Dot. Shout out to Dr. Anatomy, aka Herschel Williams the Fourth. You feel what I'm saying? In his show, the Prescription. You feel what I'm saying? So we're all doing great things, man. And so tonight, you guys, I'm just gonna start off with like just a little story. It's not a long story, but it's pretty much my situation. You know what I'm saying? the situation that I kind of grew up in. So we're speaking about, the nuclear family and what has happened over the years since slavery. You know what I'm saying? And some of the things that I'll say, I have references to. You know what I'm saying? Some will come up the dome once again, and some things I'll just read. You feel what I mean? So the first story that I'm going to be talking about. What's up, Jenny? It's hard to get over something that still happens or is in continuation. I hear you. There you go. I feel you. I'm gonna let you speak that. Because anyway, but that's true. So speaking of the family, let's keep it real. Um, Mainly we see a lot. Statistics show that the black families are well, there's a lack thereof as far as the nuclear family, which is what I'm saying when I mean the nuclear family is what I mean the mother, the father, and the children. There's not a lot of that, and I hope this hits home here in Tullahoma because that's what I'm slick going to be talking about amongst anybody else that can relate that is listening right now. You know what I'm saying? So, um, myself, I didn't grow up too long, maybe 3 years of my life. I grew up in a house where I had the mom and the dad together. Um, Technically speaking, I don't have any full brothers or full sisters where they came from the same mama and the same daddy. Um, I have a sister whom was born, through my mother. Of course, I was born through my mother too. My sister had, her father, and then I had my father. I have two older brothers that have the same dad, but we got different moms. And I have another sister who we have the same dad and a different mom. So I didn't really grow up in the house with that mom and daddy thing growing up, starting at a young age. But this is what I will say. I am blessed. I was blessed and I'm blessed that regardless of how many relationships either one of my parents have been in, everybody that was in my dad's life or my mom's life, they did their part as far as helping raising me and my other siblings, including my stepbrothers. You know what I'm saying? I was definitely blessed to where, I don't know if my mom or dad got along, my stepdad and them, but like in my eyes, I could see them getting along, so that was good for me. I was loved. I'm not even gonna sit here and tell you that I wasn't. I didn't grow up hard. You know what I'm saying? The only time that I ever witnessed a situation where I was in an environment. Hey, there goes Kat, there goes Tina, there goes Terrell, and there goes me with my big head ass over there. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. That's what's up, man. I appreciate that, man. You see, look at us. We all look alike, man. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. Shout out to Terrell, Tina, and Kat on the far left. You feel what I'm saying? And and that's me. So anyway, I grew up in a family where all the family was together. It was one of those situations to where even with my father and who he was married with at the time, um, my stepmother's ex-husband would come over to see his son, which was my stepbrother, but he never left me out. He would usually take me with him, or during Christmas, he'll have a gift for me or a present. He'll always ask me, if I wanted to hang out with him whenever they went. You feel what I'm saying? Or when I went to my stepmother's parents' house. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the McChristians in Shelbyville. When I went out there, it was just like family. We had bonfires every October. You know what I'm saying? Bonfires out there by the backyard. You know what I'm saying? At night, everybody would come over and chill. Anybody that know what I'm talking about from Shelbyville, you know what I'm saying? The McChristians had them bonfires over there. It really felt like family. So it was me, and it was the stepmom, and it was my dad, and then my stepbrother's dad. Like everybody hung out. So I grew up seeing that, man, even though that these families are broken up as far as the husband and the wife, I still saw the camaraderie. I still saw the positivity, which how I know that what you see as a child that's instilled in you as a child, and it lingers as an adult and still sticks with me. That's where I get a love for kids, and that's where in past relationships, whether they worked out or not, obviously they hadn't worked out, but in those relationships, I never left the kids out. There goes another picture. That was more recent. That was last year. You know what I'm saying? The head got bigger. I was a little swollen. Then you see them muscles protruding through them things. That's my dad in the middle. Shout out to James Masson Gill Sr. You dig what I'm saying? Shout out to Big Bro Terrell right there on the left. You feel what I'm saying? And I think that was on his birthday the year before last year. So shout out to them, man. Josh, boy, you hitting some soft spots on me right now. That's what's up. But so yeah, what was I thinking? You got me on that. Keep doing your thing though. So I grew up, you know, being protected, you know what I'm saying, by my parents, being taught things from my parents. So some things I wish I would have listened to my dad back in the day. Had me listen to Dave Ramsey and stuff. I was so bored at that time, but I wish I would have listened in. And my mama instilled things in me as far as being respectful to women and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And I gotta say a shout out to my brother Shannon too. Shannon Taylor, man. You know what I'm saying? Like haven't met him yet, but we gonna see each other, bruh, out there and up there in Ohio, man. So shout out to him. But I grew up seeing that. So as I got into relationships, um, I never left the children out of it just because I was that father figure or that stepdad. I never left them out. So I've always had a love for children, um, especially when I was in a relationship. So I became that father figure. You know what I'm saying? Even though I wasn't a shit of a boyfriend, I was off and on with it. For some reason, I always maintained that relationship with the children and stuff like that because that's just how I was raised. I never left anybody out in that situation. So that's rare. And this is the kind of point that I'm getting to here because I said I wouldn't be too long. That's rare. That's rare in families like that. It's rare, even more rare, in black families like that because in black families, there has been a separation, not because men don't want to be around the baby mamas or the wives or the girlfriends, or men want to be around their kids. That isn't how it initially started. You know, it may seem like that today, you know what I'm saying, my black women. It may seem like that today, my black men, but I kind of want to give you a little FYI on kind of how that started and to kind of rebuttal a lot of things that people have tried to debate with me about on what they say we should kind of get over. You know, psychological effects to the brain are very detrimental. It's not like you can cut it off overnight. It's just like addiction. You can't just go cold turkey. And if you do, then you literally been touched by the hand of God, like poof, it's all over. And we know how hard addiction is. We know how hard addiction is here, just here in Tullahoma and in Coffee County, where the overdose rates are up. You know what I'm saying? People are dying. And as much as people are trying to get over those type of addictions, it's hard. So that's what you call a psychological effect. You feel me? Now imagine having an addiction for 300 years, from 1619 to 1965. And we can ooze it on over to 2020. You hear what I'm saying? Because this is where I'm going to get to as far as how I believe, just through my research on how it started with the black families as far as us separating. Because in the 60s, black families were at the height of being together. 75%, almost 80% marital rate together. Now, the divorce rate is well over 50%. Black women, 75% of the time, don't get married. That's here in 2020. Okay? So, how did that happen? How did that change? How did we get from 1619 to 2020? How did we get to a core nuclear family that was together, even through the roughest of times, to having civil rights, being desegregated, but the marital rate going down and the children's without fathers skyrocketing? And here's my opinion based on some facts on what I feel that happened. Okay, so let's go through this little history thing real quick. I'm gonna try to break these down, you know what I'm saying? And then I'll open the floor for anybody that wants to add anything or ask any questions, so to speak, or share your experience. 1619. Okay, a lot of us know, some of us don't, which is why I really think that the schools should incorporate more black history. Hello, Tullahoma Board of Education, holla at me. You know what I'm saying? Sidney Hill, what's up, man? What's up? Y'all know I'm calling people out. But anyway, 1619 is when, as far as recorded, when the first slave ship came over here, somewhere between like 15 and 20 slaves. You know what I'm saying? From then, they were branded, they were marked, they were, beaten into submission. Now, I just want you to imagine for a minute, you know, everybody, black people, white people, Chinese, Jews, all that's Mexicans, just imagine, all right? Without trying to argue with me about if slaves, the Africans sold their own slaves. I'm only worried about what happened once the slaves got there, okay? So just imagine being taken to a country, all right, that you know nothing about, nothing at all, and you're around a bunch of other of your African people. Some of them had different languages because Africa is a pretty big country, right? Different languages. So it was kind of hard to kind of communicate to be like, hey, where we going? Where you going? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's really going on? Well, at that moment, just like we all do as Americans when there's a catastrophe, we may not speak the same language and know anything about each other, but that's a moment that we come together and be like, okay, we got to do something. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure there were times that they tried to plan something when they got up on top of the ship deck, you know what I'm saying, and attack the, you know what I'm saying, the captains and stuff like that, but it never really worked out. And they got taught a lesson real quick. Either they were shot, killed, castrated, or thrown off the ship. Some of them even sacrificed their lives and jumped off the ship themselves because they said, I'd rather be dead than be whatever they trying to make me be, as a slave. So, once we get in here to America, right? Um, Imagine them being scared. Imagine them being confused about what's going on. And then while all that's going on in the head, you're being whipped. You're being stripped. You're being patted down. They're looking at your size. They're looking at your strength. They're trying to see, okay, what price can I put on this human being based on what they look like? From the women being sexualized, to the men, well, being sexualized too, because there were some dirty mofos out there. But it was all for sale. They were selling human beings, right? Human beings like you and I and the rest of us. Imagine being forced to go where you don't want to go and you don't know where you're going. Okay? And once you get to these plantations, in the early South, remind you, this is early 1600s. America is not even fully developed, right? Still got colonies. And you're going down to the hot South. You know what I'm saying? Different temperatures, probably a little more humid. You know what I'm saying? And this whole time you're getting broke in. What I mean by broke in, I said being whipped. You know what I'm saying? Being beaten, being talked to like you're not anything. That's just the start of that psychological effect, okay? So I want to introduce you guys to a guy by the name of Willie Lynch. And Willie Lynch was also a slave owner, but he was also a mastermind. And I don't mean that in a good way, okay? Willie Lynch had wrote these letters, which they call it the Willie Lynch letters. And in these Willie Lynch letters, which I'm actually going to read the whole thing, and it's not long, I promise y'all, you know what I'm saying? It's just a quick little letter, you know what I'm saying, that he wrote to the slave owners and stuff in the Caribbeans, where those islands were, because there were slaves dropped off there first too, you know what I'm saying? And also the ones that were there in America, in the lower South, in Florida and stuff like that, okay? Georgia. And with these slave masters, they didn't really know anything about psychology. They just knew, we got human beings and they're for sale and we're just going to beat them in submission and hopefully they're going to do what we say. Well, they didn't really kind of work out the way they wanted to at first. There were a lot that rebelled or probably tried to fight back or that were defiant, right? Because they hadn't been fully broke in. They haven't really been trained to be submissive and scared and fearful, because we were kings. We were queens. We rolled with the kings or queens, or we were warriors at that time. You know what I'm saying? So Willie Lynch came up with these letters on how to psychologically affect the slaves. All right. So I'm going to read this. I'm a pretty thorough reader. I'm okay. Okay. And This happened in the early 1700s. As a matter of fact, it's crazy. This letter was written on December the 25th, 1712. December the 25th, 1712. Okay. And this is what it reads. And y'all bear with me. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all tuning in thus far. Exactly. All right. What's up, BJ? All right. So it says, gentlemen, I'm going to blow this up so I can really see here. Okay. All right. It says, gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I'm here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprising. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. 2 or 3 more paragraphs. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. Okay? My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I've outlined a number of differences among the slaves and make the differences bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control. I'm going to say that one more time. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control. All right. And down to this last year. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. Sorry. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantations, and status on plantations. Attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley or in a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action, but before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have you white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. It is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intentionally for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. Okay? Now, I'm going to break this down a little bit, and I would advise anybody, if you want to read more, you just Google the Willie Lynch letters, okay? So I'm going to break this down, as far as when he's saying you turned the old against the new and the new against the old. Yeah, he put the thing up there right there. That's what's up, Josh. The young against the old against the new, the husbands against the wives against the husbands, different shades of colors, the dark skin versus the light skin. Okay. Now, when you think about this, these are some of the things that happen. So you already got your black families together, right? In those 1600s and stuff. 1700s, excuse me. So we're in the 1700s. America's still not fully developed yet, but they're developing slaves. These are some of the things that happened in slavery in order to gain control. In some cases, there would be times, you can look all this up, all right? There would be times where, let's just say, a male slave was trying to run away, okay? They caught the male slave. And what they would do to that male slave is the family that he's with, he brings them up front with the wife and the children that they may have, and they would beat that male in front of the family's face. They will castrate that slave in front of the family. Okay? You have the wife looking at their husband, the one that she looks up to, the one that she saw as strong, being vulnerable and being taken advantage of. Therefore, when the wife looks at the man at that time, which I'm going to compare it to today, when the wife looks at that man as that king, as that protector that he was when they were overseas, now being beaten by slave owners, slave masters, she begins to look down on him psychologically. That means every time he tries to run away, she doesn't let him. Like, no, don't do that. You're going to get your ass beat. I'm speaking in contemporary terms right now. You feel what I'm saying? Because I'm pretty sure they have broken English and all that. On the flip side, they would take the wives and beat the wives in front of the husband and the kids. They would sodomize the men. They would sodomize the women. And in some cases, there are stories of where they tie their arms together against horses going in the opposite direction to tear their limbs. They would cut out the babies of the mother whom was pregnant in front of the men. While they're doing this to the woman, or while they're raping the woman in front of the men, that woman naturally is looking for that man, her husband, to save the day, based on what he was always doing before they were brought here. But if that male slave, or that black male slave, was to do something about it, he would get killed. So it was a catch-22. And I'm pretty sure there were some cases where the man was like, I don't care, I'm about to save my wife, even if I gotta die doing it. So even if he tried, he died. So there you go. You have that black woman, that black slave at that time, not depending on that man to save her. The children not depending on that man to be the protector and the provider, because every time he tried to, he would be killed, castrated, raped, sold. And this is the big part right here. Black people don't know a lot of our history as far as our names. My last name and in my family name were slave names. A lot of black people's names are slave names, especially when it comes to last names, because some of our ancestors, the ones who were slaves, had names of their own. When the slaves came here, they were stripped of their names. They were stripped of their religion and their morals and their folklores, everything. They had to unlearn what they learned and relearn something that they've never heard of before. Y'all seen the movie Roots? Made him change his name. That was an example of some of the things that they did. So at this point, all history is lost, even to this day, of who we really are. Okay? So this is what's happening back then. We're losing all of that. At the same time, while we're being disciplined for maybe not having enough pounds of cotton for the day, or maybe trying to run away, our ancestors are getting beat and whipped. And while they're being beat and being whipped, the slave master is reading scriptures from the Bible. The same Bible that they're making us read today, which those things are still in the Bible right now when it comes to beating a slave to almost death. In the Bible, it speaks that as far as a slave, beating your slave close to death. As long as you don't kill him, you're all right. And a lot of those slave masters used that as an excuse and embedded that in our heads that maybe this is the divine way. I acted up. I tried to run away, or I tried to save my wife, or I didn't get enough cotton or anything else, tobacco for the day, you know, that's God's punishment to me. Imagine that being instilled, if we're speaking from 1619 to 1865, as far as when slavery was abolished. 246 years of that. But people tell me and others to get over that. And I'm going to explain later why it still affects us today. Without placing any blame on the people that are here today, I'm speaking to the ones that may not understand why we're in the situation that we're in, and hopefully how we can get out of it. You have 246 years of that. It's generation after generation after generation after generation after generation. Kids having kids. On top of that, the black families were separated in slavery, which means, if I must be real, throughout those hundreds of years that was going on, we could have been mating with our cousins. We could have been mating with our sisters. And I would hate to say this, but just to keep it real, we're all grown here. We could have been mating with our mothers. Who knows? It was all mixed up. Some children were taken at birth. Some women were taken at birth. Black women at birth, just to be used as maybe sex toys or servants. Of course, the black men, they were used more for work. They took the men away from the families. They took the wives, the women away from the families, the children, separating the families. You imagine right now if somebody came in your house and took your children. Husbands, you imagine right now somebody comes in your house and takes your wife, and vice versa. How would you feel? Now, in this day and age, right, you can probably do something about it when they try to do it. But imagine if there was a rule set that if you tried to do that right now, I'm going to kill you for doing that. Can you imagine what that does to you psychologically? And this is why I'm going to continue to say why it's still a problem today. And I want us to get out of that to our black families. So just going back, imagine all of that just going on for 246 years. Now you got broken families in the slavery years. Broken families. You don't know who your daddy is. Sometimes you don't know who your mama is because you don't have either your mama or your daddy. You feel what I'm saying? And so you grow up. Who are you depending on? It's obvious. Who are you depending on? I appreciate your committed, injecting knowledge and ultimately strength to our black community. Your work is necessary. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Thank you, Beth Hamilton Taylor. I'm doing the best that I can. I know there's a lot of scholars out there that can really elaborate more, but I'm just really here to maybe give some little checkpoints for people to research for those who want to know, because I'm not going to force this on anybody, but I have to get this out there to help them understand. And I appreciate you very much. Anybody that's watching, please share. Help a brother out. All right. So 246 years, all of that going on. All right. Then boom, all of a sudden, slavery is abolished. It's abolished. Okay. And Josh, I don't know if you want to do this or not, because I kind of want to go into the next transition as far as post-slavery or whatnot. I just wanted to give them a little something. I didn't know I was going for 40 minutes. You know what I mean? Is it okay if we go to a commercial? You know what I'm saying? Just give them a little break, and I can kind of dip into the next session because I don't want to stop in the middle of everything. Is that cool with you? All right. So we're going to go for a commercial break. You guys will be back in about a minute and a half. Y'all keep that on your mind. And in the meantime, y'all continue to share. All right. We'll be right back.
Just James butter. It's really good on your hair.
My favorite has got to be the peppermint mist leave-in conditioner. It's so soothing to your scalp. I've had dry, itchy scalp, and I tell you, it's amazing.
My favorite product with Jay's Butter is the natural flaxseed elixir, especially on the hair that's not mine.
Y'all know what? I really love Jay's Butter. I love Jay's Butter.
What up, everybody? It's your boy, Royce the Voice, and I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Kevin Lambert, aka the Cell Phone Guy. Now has a new website at www.tncellphoneguy.com. He will turn your phone from hell to heaven. He's open 24/7. He'll have your phone done in about 30 to 45 minutes, an hour at the most. There's no other guy that I would rather call locally. It's Kevin Lambert. So y'all make sure y'all check him out, all right? He will turn your phone from hell to heaven. www.tncellphoneguy.com.
What's up, ladies? It's your girl Cynthia Bailey from The Real Housewives of Atlanta, and I got some good news. Dorbin Salon is back open. I know if you guys are like me, you see I have these braids over here. It's been a struggle during the pandemic. So Dorbin Salon is back open. They sell hair, they do hair, they deliver whatever you need. They got you, boo-boo. Okay? Make sure you guys go show some love and go get your hair done.
Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy, Royce the Voice, Orange Cake, Orange Leader. Shout out to K-Team. Speak your thoughts or lose your mind. Let me give a shout out to Sheena and Jenny. Yes. BJ says, it all the way to the 1960s, you couldn't even whistle at a white woman as a black man. Look at what happened to Emmett Till. You sure as hell couldn't put your hands on a white person, and if you did, you faced the lynch mob. You know what I'm saying? And Sheena, you're right on this one too. Not to mention there's also scientific evidence that suggests memories and trauma in people's DNA, and people can research that too. That's definitely true. But I had to do this because, you know what I'm saying, I got to give a shout, even though I said Jay's Butter, but you know what I'm saying, but you know, shout out to Shay's Butter, you know what I'm saying, right here. You know what I mean? This is for, you know, the beards, you know, refined oil that softens, hydrates, and promotes healthy growth. You know what I'm saying? Got an ounce of that good. You know what I'm saying? That's what's been making my hair do its thing. You feel what I'm saying? And, you know, shout out to the Tennessee, you know, the cell phone guy. You know what I'm saying? I still haven't broke my phone yet, but when I do, when I break it on purpose, I'm gonna make sure that you fix it. You know what I'm saying? But shout out to everybody that's been going to him. You know what I'm saying? That's learned about it through the show. Shout out to everybody that's been going to Jay's Butter. You know, just maybe from watching it on the show. You know what I'm saying? So you guys keep supporting her. But this is what I use. You know what I'm saying? For the beard. You know, Beth Hamilton says not only that, the black community benefit from the information you share, but our white neighbors can learn and hopefully better understand our struggle and continue plight. And that's exactly what I'm doing it for. You know what I'm saying? Because I spend a lot of time trying to force people to be like, you're gonna understand and you're gonna learn and you can't make people do anything. You know what I'm saying? We all got choices or whatnot, but I'm just trying to do my small little part in contributing some type of information that'll spark a mind to just go and look it up. Because if you say you're proud to be an American, you got to be proud to know the history too, and be ashamed of it and hurt from it and learn from it so you can understand and we can move forward with all this. You dig what I'm saying? What's up, DeVars? Yes. So, where was I? We were going back to home. Make sure I ain't gonna sneeze. Woo. All right. You guys continue to share like you guys are doing. You feel what I'm saying? Please do that. Please. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. So going back, you know, now I've already told you guys pretty much briefly with the willingness letters, the psychological effect with the broken black families and stuff during those times. Okay. So now we're going into the second sector, as far as post-slavery. You feel what I'm saying? And, you know, with post-slavery, of course, you know, the 13th Amendment had abolished slavery. And, but within that 13th Amendment, it was kind of sneaky. It was kind of sneaky because within that 13th Amendment, you know, there was heavy incarceration from black men and women, mostly like black men. You have to remember at times that, you know, a lot of the black people post-slaves, ex-slaves and slaves still at the time, they couldn't read or write. There were very few of them that could do that because if they got caught doing it, it was off with your head or anything else on your body parts. So once again, psychologically affected, that fear of learning. I'm going to simplify this. Basically, they're saying if you learn, you die. If you learn, you die. Let's just say it like that. You feel me? So that point got put across very quickly during those times, and black people straightened up and flew right, as they say back in the day, but they weren't really flying right. You feel me? So now just imagine you're coming off post-slavery. Juneteenth. I believe technically it was around, don't make me mistake this. It was either 1865 or 1866, but it was in the lower part of Texas. It's when those last bit of slaves were like out. It might have been 1867, if I'm correct. Somebody correct me on that, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, so imagine post-slavery, we're free, I suppose. I guess everybody just thinks, oh, well, it's all over with. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention, remember, the families were broken up. 246 years. You feel me? 246 years. You might have been sleeping with the slave master. You know what I'm saying? And then you come out with, mulattoes is what they call it. Or mixed children or whatnot. And those mixed children were in the house. And with those mixed children in the house, they develop an attitude because they've never been out in the field. So they're looking down on the field Negroes that are out there working their ass off. So they don't even identify themselves as black. And even some of the ones that were in the house that were not mulatto, they look down on the field Negroes too. It's like, I'm in the house. To them, they felt like they were free. They were living a good life. They were getting the leftovers. Right? All right. So I'm just trying to get you guys to think what still lingers. All right. So slaves are free, right? Right. The Civil Rights Act, get the right to vote, all that stuff like that. Yay, but that's not exactly how it happened. Okay. Because there were things that were enforced like Jim Crow laws or black codes. And when we speak on black codes, I'm going to speak on the most simplest way. Okay. This is still dealing. So remember, psychological, right? Post-slavery. So slaves are free. You feel me? But at the same time, after the death of Abraham Lincoln, I think it was Andrew Johnson that came aboard. And he made it to where the states could pretty much do what the hell they wanted to do. Enforce some of their own laws. You know what I'm saying? Because states have laws too that are different from other states. You feel what I'm saying? That the rest of America can't really F with. And so these black codes were incorporated. These Jim Crow laws were incorporated during the Reconstruction around the 1870s. You feel what I'm saying? Yes, there were black people elected for certain Congress positions and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Very few, but it was, very few. But this is when the KKK arose. You look that up. Started right here in Tennessee, Pulaski, Tennessee. And they were developed specifically to run black people away from polls, from voting. You remember how I said voting was important? Voting must be important when you develop an organization to spread fear. That should let you know how important voting is. That they had to develop an organization to intimidate you. In some cases, they would kill you for trying to vote, maybe even trying to run for anything or just to do something, all right? Now, imagine this once again. Even though the families were broken up once before, 200-something years ago at that time, they come together once again, post-slavery, all right? Got your new boo, you know what I mean? Don't know where they came from. They could have been separated from their family too. But hey, the black families are back together and they're closer than ever. Well, now that we can't read or write, we might be breaking some laws that we don't know nothing about because we don't know what that sign means. The sign could say, no soliciting. We don't know what soliciting means. So we're just going to solicit. And then we get arrested and get these ridiculous charges. And now we're in the chain gang. We're back in slavery again, pretty much. Because that was technically slavery. 13th Amendment. There's actually a Netflix special on that you guys should watch. Everybody from black and white talks about it. It's true. It happened. It's there. Can't get over it. Like, yo, that's happened. Okay? So yeah, Jim Crow laws. Pretty much, yeah, from 1877 to 1954 for segregation. But they made it legal. They call it, separate but equal. But when you think about that, that don't really make sense. And these black codes, they were like things in between the lines. You got to read between the fine print. They separated blacks from whites. Racism really was starting to form when you had that power to separate and give those less and others more opportunities. Okay? So blacks were going to their own schools at the time. I have to say a shout out to University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. That is my alma mater out there in HBCU out there in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. They started in 1872. And let me tell you something, just to inspire my people just a little bit about this. Even throughout all of that, all of slavery, we were still able to develop schools and universities in the late 1800s, right? With the lack thereof of reading and writing, you feel what I'm saying? Something in us allowed us to prosper in our minds, to still be educated. You feel what I'm saying? So bringing back to the KKK, once again, that's kind of like another Willie Lynch situation. To intimidate, you feel me? To lose faith and hope that, yeah, they say you're free, but here in the state of Mississippi or Alabama, boy, you better not vote or we're going to kill you. We're going to burn crosses in your yard, whatever. Of course, I don't think they were doing that till after D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, but excuse me for jumping ahead on that. So once again, even though that we were free, we weren't really free. You know, they gave it just a little bit at a time. You know what I'm saying? Those black codes came from like the minstrel times. There was minstrel shows and stuff like that. And if y'all don't know nothing about minstrel shows, that's dealing with like black faces where, you know, white people would put tar and whatever else on their face to look like they're black. It was like they hated black people so much that they didn't want a black person to even play a black person in theater. It had to be a white person to paint themselves as black people. You feel me? That's how much hate there was. You feel me? And I'm going to show you how this is all tying in together a little bit. All right. So those powers that be, those people that did that, they knew that it wasn't going to just be for that moment. They knew it wasn't going to affect us for that moment, in hopes, as Willie Lynch said, it could last for 300 to 400 years or even thousands. To even say something like that when you study and do your research, like Willie did, as he's seen, he says, oh, this could happen if we still keep it up. So they still held on to that even after slavery, that we're still going to find a way to separate these black families, affect them psychologically to make them feel like they can't do anything but go back to the chain gang, or but go back to an ex-slave owner and help cultivate his field for a little of nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So we're going into the 1900s a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We're getting there, y'all. We're getting there, all right? Try to be done like an hour and 30 minutes at that mark. So we're getting there. All right, 1900s. All right. Well, you know, in some cases, there was a lot of land that was offered, especially out there in the Midwest, you know, Oklahoma, Kansas, and stuff like that. And some black people were migrating from the South over there to the Midwest and, you know, buying land with the money that they had. And once again, for blacks, a lot of blacks that couldn't read or write, there were some that were able to do that and that were able to spread that knowledge, and they were able to cultivate their own land and become sharecroppers and actually build their own town. And this is when we go into the early 1900s, 1915, 1920, 21, and stuff like that. One specific town that a lot of people can look up, which is not in the history books. Hello, Board of Education in Tullahoma. We need to learn some of this stuff. It's called the Red Summer, right? 1920, 21, 1919. Summer of 1919. It's called the Red Summer. And it happened in places like in Chicago and in Texas and Charleston, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, you know, out in those areas. And more in particular, in Greenwood. It's a neighborhood in Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1920. It was part of the Red Summer. And this was a situation where a city was very prosperous. I believe on the north side of Tulsa. It's a black community. Hundreds of business, doctors, dentists, grocery stores, everything that you could think of. They even had, you know, little cars, and they even had airports, you know, with the planes, the little mini planes and stuff like that. You feel what I'm saying? They were prosperous, and they had their own schools and their churches. Once again, black families had prospered. And through hearsay, allegedly, there was a situation where a young boy, I believe he was working at the hotel, and a younger white lady had came in to the elevator where he was at. I think he might have been the bellboy or something. And she comes out the elevator screaming, saying that this black boy done something to me. Now, if I can speed through that and be like, well, okay, I'm gonna keep it real. Like, if I'm a black kid or a young black kid and I'm in the elevator with a white woman at that time, I'm scared as hell. I ain't gonna touch you. Lord knows what you gonna do. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to have none of that done to me, because I remember stories where my grandfather, great grandfather were telling me, boy, don't you be around them white women or be around them white men. You keep your head down. But what I want to say, what I think happened is that probably that woman tried to get with the younger man, to be honest. And he was like, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, 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 no. Probably felt embarrassed. And she was like, oh, right, whatever. You know, I'm just saying, regardless, with that particular incident, the news got out quickly. And by dawn, it seemed like every white person at that time in Tulsa, Oklahoma was enraged, going to that jail cell where that young man was at, demanding him to get out so they can drag him, kill him, or whatnot. The newspapers picked it up quick. The word got out really quick. And all of a sudden, there's a riot. White people are trying to drag this young man out. Black families are trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Next thing you know, there's a riot everywhere, right? And now these particular white people in Tulsa, Oklahoma start vandalizing, start looting, and start destroying the black communities with so much force that the National Guard was even involved in bombing this particular part of town. There's footage. You look at it. You read up on it. They brought planes and they dropped bombs and they destroyed everything. Now, there's an unofficial number of how many fatalities and casualties there were, but I can imagine that there were a lot. There was some from 100 and some say already up to 300. And there's some that you don't even know where they're buried, off in some land somewhere. Like, there still needs to be some research on that, on where are those dead bodies and stuff, because there could have been more. Because remember, it's not like they recorded everything, and we know this, okay? And I don't think there's anybody alive on that day. If they are, there might be like 5 of them. But if you guys can look that up and Google that, in Greenwood. And I say that to say this, because once again, when black families get hope and they start to prosper and they're circulating the black dollar, which I will tell you that even up to this date, there has been no other city, correct me if I'm wrong, but even at that time, that black dollar in that community circulated well over 100 some odd days. Now that's good. When you keep the money within the family, you're reeing up, you're building up the city, you're making the city richer, and everybody's prospering. There's jobs available. The job rate, everybody had a job, from shoe shining all the way to being a doctor. Everybody was getting paid. Look at these brothers. They're dressed up. They called it Black Wall Street right there. Let me get some water. But when you bring the National Guard and you bring outraged people of that town, destroying that whole town based off a rumor that a young black boy tried to sexually assault a white woman, let's keep it real. I don't care if you're white or black, Chinese. You know good and damn well there wasn't no brother trying to rape a white woman back then, because we know what would happen. But that's another story. My point is that the fact that when black people, 1921, that where black people were prosperous, that white supremacy, those groups of people were waiting for that moment to try to mess up everything, which tells me that they were already hating. They were just waiting for that. All they needed to hear was one thing. If they said, oh, black boy sneezed on that white woman, oh, it's all war, we're tearing this shit down. That's the equivalence of what it is. Off of hearsay, they burnt a town down. Now, according to history, and as far as what I've been seeing, there were plenty of more incidents like that, but I don't recall any black people just ravaging their own neighborhoods or ravaging other neighborhoods. They were the ones being terrorized. And this was in the early 1900s. So once again, as we're getting closer to 2020, this was 100 years ago. Once again, another psychological effect. God, we just 60 years out of slavery, 55 years out of slavery. And now, when we start to build something, it's being taken away from us. We're being killed. Everything that we've invested in is all gone and burnt and lost in history, left to be quiet. This happened in other cities too. So imagine what that does to a black family psychologically. I know what I would be thinking. I would be thinking, well, what the hell? What's the use of even doing anything? Because anytime we try to build something on our own, it gets taken away. But people say, get over it. We're in a 100-year gap now, okay? Remind you, an addiction or psychological effect does not quit overnight. So this is 246 years of this happening, and then another 60 years of trying to build something, and it gets taken away. So now we're over the 300-year mark. We are actually at the 300-year mark and then some during this particular time in history. So you can't tell me that that doesn't affect the families over again. So now you got a whole new generation. My grandmother was born 1923. 2 years later, my grandmother's born. So you can imagine the stories that she was hearing from her mother and her father, her grandmother and her great-grandfather. And you're instilling that into your children. Don't be going over there trying to build something or try to make something of yourself, because those white folks are going to take it away. And I need my white counterparts to listen to this. Not blaming you at all. I just want y'all to understand how in our black families it was passed down to not be somebody. So we're picking up these words, and well, this is my show, I can say this, whatever. We're picking up these words like nigger, nigga, you know, which can definitely be transformed into, if you're in Southern culture, that word nigger can be turned into nigga because of country slang. How I know that, when my dad was born, his name is James Royce Massengill Sr. But them country folks in Winchester were calling him James Ross Massengill, but they clearly tried to tell him that it is Royce, but they were so defiant, and they were like, no, his name is Ross, and that's what we're going to call him. So they put Ross on his birth certificate. That's why when I was born, my dad made sure that they spelled their A's right. Okay? So let's not get it twisted. You feel me? We'll talk about that later, or we don't have to talk about it at all. That's a whole nother show about that word. But everything that we're picking up during that time, we're in the 1920s now. Now we're going through women's suffrage, right? Okay, great thing, right? Women get to vote, but you forget about black women. They couldn't vote. Black people still couldn't vote. So once again, we still can't vote, and we're watching people move up in front of us. Can you imagine once again what that does to you psychologically, passed on from generation to generation? So now, when my father's born in the late 40s, in the early 50s, he's being taught that too. Here we go. These are the baby boomers, right? He's being taught what his mama taught him, what his grandmama taught him, and at the time when she was alive, great-grandmama had taught him. Once again, in the 50s, keep your head down. Don't you think about being something of yourself. You need to just stay around here. Around this time, between the 40s and the 60s, the black families were real tight. And that's why church was such a big thing back in those times. You feel what I'm saying? Because that was the only place we can go to congregate. Because if we were anything else or anywhere else, walking somewhere else, or we can't read where it says blacks only or whites only, pretty soon it wasn't even the fact of just knowing that that said blacks only. It's just the fact that we seen it so much and we just visualized it. You know how you can have a visual memory type thing, like, oh, I don't know what that says, but I know what that means. You know, it says blacks only. I can't read it saying blacks only, but I remember those lines and how it's written. Okay, we supposed to be over here and white folks to be over there. Okay, that's all we know. And it became, once again, a routine. Y'all know what it is with routines. When they say it takes 21 days to break a habit, imagine 300 years of the habit not being broken yet, right? And it says 60 years, not 60 years, 60 days for it to become a lifestyle. 60 days, but imagine 300 years. I'm trying to get y'all to understand here. We're in the 50s now. And we're getting closer to that 2020. This is less than 100 years now. At this time, there was Roe versus Wade. You feel me? Did I say Roe versus Wade? Brown versus the Board of Education, excuse me. 1954, somewhere around that time. Now, after all of this, they're wanting to desegregate. Just out the blue. Well, hey, you know, it's not right. You still shouldn't do this. You know, this is not right. Everybody's equal. Blase, blase. You know, yeah, let's bring us all together. Let's bring the blacks and the white together in schools. Mind you, black establishments were already in progress. Black schools were already in progress. We were getting past the old editions of books. Ain't no telling, just to be honest, what was being taught in those black students' books. And even at that time, and my grandmother as my witness, that most of our grandmothers and grandfathers had to drop out of school at 3rd to 8th grade. That was like an underbelly law. At 8th grade, that's it. That's where it stops. You got to get out here in these fields and you still work. My auntie was still picking cotton in the 50s and 60s, in the 50s, 40s and 50s and stuff. Legally, but that was the jobs that were only available. You know, there were a lot of sharecroppers back then. You know what I'm saying? That's why our grandmothers and grandfathers, you know, even to this day, got them green beans in the basket, everything, you know what I'm saying? We learned that from that. That's one thing that we picked up. You know, that's why our grandmothers living so long now. You feel me? Because they ate from them gardens. But let me stay on track. Okay. So we're into the 50s and stuff like that. They're trying to segregate. They're trying to desegregate. Now, mind you, even though that passed in 1954, even in places down here at home, Winchester, Tennessee, they didn't desegregate until the mid to late 60s, 1966 to be exact. We slick kind of talked about that. You know what I'm saying? So even though that law was incorporated, it took 12 years to sometimes 15 years for other schools to be integrated. Y'all saw Remember the Titans. That was in the early 70s and they just started to integrate. It took a long time. Why? State laws. They just did it when they wanted to. You feel what I'm saying? All right. So now we're getting a little closer. Now, so imagine, and sometimes I ask the question is like, was desegregation good for black people? And not to say that we don't want to be around anybody else, but I'm looking at it statistically and psychologically what it's done. So now all of a sudden we are desegregated, right? In some of these places, mid 50s, early 60s. Still can't vote. But now we're going to school and we're learning with our white counterparts. Mind you, racism, big word. Racism is still going on at that time. Still in the flesh. Governor Wallace in Alabama made it clear he didn't want niggas in his schools. Said that out loud and proud, and people were for it. These are your grandmothers and grandfathers saying that. I'm saying this to my white counterparts. Has nothing with you, but it's something you need to learn. Okay? They were saying this to people like my dad, and saying this to people like my mom and my grandmothers and our aunties and uncles and stuff like that. To the point to where Ruby, she had to have the National Guard escort her to school. The Little Rock Nine had to get people to the National Guard to help them walk into the school. Now, when you think about this, with desegregation, let me keep it real. Do you think, and this is being honest, do you think that black people wanted to integrate with white people back in them days? Because, once again, psychologically, things happen when we're around white people at that time. The KKK was still in full effect during that time. Us trying to read and write was still in effect at that time. Not as much then, you know, at that time, but before then. But once again, passed on from generation to generation. All of a sudden now we're integrating. And now we have to get along with these people. Mind you, they said racism is a learned behavior. So you got your parents teaching these kids. They have no idea why mommy's so mad at this little black kid that ain't done nothing. But he incorporates that hate because that's what mommy and daddy are doing. So they become bots and do it just because. Excuse me, I bumped the mic. They do it just because. And black kids is not, they don't know what's going on. Like, what is this? I was with my black family here. I was learning what I needed to learn here. You know what I'm saying? They literally did not want us there, but they forced us there. You feel what I'm saying? So once again, now we're kind of into the 60s a little bit. All right. Whew. We got Martin Luther King. We got Malcolm X. We got Medgar Evers. We got Huey P. Newton. We got Bobby Seale. Did I say Angela Davis already? You know, we got Fred Hampton, which his movie's coming out pretty soon or whatnot. So now we got these black leaders, you know, coming up. Can't forget about Marcus Garvey, you know, started it all. And here's another psychological effect. Even throughout racism in the 60s, they killed every one of our main black leaders, and even those that were not named. Okay? Fred Hampton was only 21 years old when he died. He was killed by the police in his sleep, like machine gun to death. Right? Martin Luther King, at one time, white people were loving him because, oh, you know, he's the safe one. He's keeping us cool, all together, nonviolence and stuff like that. You know, which I'm gonna keep it real, I didn't really quite get that. You know what I'm saying? But I know he had a good heart. That's my frat brother too. You know what I'm saying? But toward the end of his death, he started to get into Garveyism. I want some of y'all to check that out, Marcus Garvey and stuff like that. And even in his memoirs, he was writing where he felt like he led his black people into the wrong direction or whatnot. With Malcolm X, I know a lot of people think that Malcolm X was this terrible guy, this black nationalist, this communist or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? But when you listen to his ideology and stuff like that, yeah, Gina, the 4 little black girls and the children in church, they were bombing churches. Yeah, I'm glad you throw that in there. Think about the bombing churches. When you're going in there and you're worshiping God and then you get bombed, who has the nerve to bomb a church? Okay. Once again, psychological effects again. Now you can't go to church. Can you imagine black people being afraid to go to church where they worship and congregate? Once again, that's passed on from generation to generation. I can imagine during the heat of that moment how black people felt going to church. Ooh, sorry. That scared me a little bit because it jumped loud. But going to church, I get a little excited sometimes. Can you imagine that? Okay. And then we got our black leaders and stuff like that, you know, trying to push, you know, for freedom and just to be treated equally. The other America speech is what killed MLK. Yeah, you're right. Coming for that check. That was in the later 60s, man. Y'all should look that up. Real talk. Shout out to Nino Black. All right. So now imagine what it does to you psychologically in the 60s when you see every one of your main leaders killed, all the way down to the Black Panthers. I know somebody was rebuttaling with me one time in Winchester, and, you know, the whole rebel flag thing and stuff going on. And somebody had the nerve to tell me that, you know, Black Panthers were communists and they were killing cops, and I had to stop them right away. You feel what I'm saying? The Black Panther Party of self-defense was simply them policing their streets, protecting their people from the police brutality, just in simplest form. They were feeding their communities. There was community breakfasts. You know what I'm saying? There were lessons being taught. There were fighting techniques, martial arts and stuff like that. They were selling newspapers. They were doing this all by themselves. They were trying to keep the streets clean. You feel me? And once again, good old J. Edgar Hoover infiltrated that system and knocked the Black Panthers out. They knocked Malcolm X out. They knocked Martin Luther King out. They knocked Fred Hampton out. Why? Because they knew that those leaders were going to take those black men and women out of that negative psychological effect that I was talking about earlier. This is in the 60s and in the 70s. You understand what I'm saying? Shout out to Marquita. This was in the 60s and the 70s. Now that's 50 years ago. Okay? Now we're talking about when my big brothers and sisters were born. Not too far away. Because I'm born 12 years later. All right? We're getting closer to 2020 now. Bear with me. We're almost there. Okay. So once again, all of our black leaders are gone. What does that do to you psychologically once you hit the 70s? And during black exploitation is what they say and whatnot. I still like some of those movies. Yes, black leaders, and that's the thing I want to talk about with the difference between black leaders and leading blacks. I'm gonna get into that. Black boy, Nino, you ahead on me. You ahead on me. Good stuff, brother. But so what I'm trying to get y'all to understand now, we're in the 70s. So once again, our hope is built up from all of these black leaders, and we keep seeing them being shot down one by one by one, and they're even killing presidents. They headshotting JFK for him at least trying to do something. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about what he was trying to do, but the point is that if you don't follow the rules of what the powers that be want you to do, they're gonna kill you. All right. He said white people never tried to understand the BPP. Ronald Reagan was responsible for demonizing the BPP. Yeah, he was the governor of California, I think, at that time. And they changed the whole gun laws during that time, as a matter of fact, if I'm correct, in California, where, now they couldn't carry certain guns, you know what I mean? Because they were coming in there with shotguns in the courthouse. Feel me? Ooh, that's a whole nother lesson. But anyway, I'm just generalizing, saying, look what it does to us psychologically. Now we're afraid to be leaders. We were afraid to be leaders. You know why? Because once again, they're going to kill us if we try to get our families and our black families out of the state that they're in and how they're being treated. We're in the 70s, y'all. Okay. So black leaders are gone. In comes the gangs. In comes the drugs, right? There's nothing else. In the West Coast, white people actually, Compton was actually full of white people. That was a white city, pretty much, white area. And they moved out of those towns and took the jobs with them, left black people there with no jobs, and they put drugs in there. Heroin, cocaine, all that other stuff. Couldn't get jobs. At that time, this is when the welfare reform was, going on and stuff. And at that time, with the welfare, guess what happens with that? The father can't be in the home. The father can't be in the home. And within those black codes, there was this little subtitle called Man in the House Rule. Okay. And I'm going to read that to you real quick. It's real quick. Under the Man in the House Rule, a child who otherwise qualified for welfare benefits was denied those benefits if the child's mother was living with or having relations with any single or married able-bodied male. The man was considered a substitute father, even if the man was not supporting the child. Before 1968, administrative policies in many states created and enforced the Man in the House Rule, and simply saying was that U.S. Supreme Court struck down the regulation as being contrary to the legislative goals of the Aid of Families of Department Children, AFDC program. Okay, so let me see where this is, because I want to get to. Okay, here it goes. The children of this was an incident in Alabama. So they were saying the children of Smith filed a class action suit in a federal court on behalf of other children in Alabama who were denied benefits under Alabama's substitute father regulation. This regulation considered a man a substitute father. He lived in a home with the mother. He visited the home frequently for the purpose of living with the mother, or he cohabited with the mother elsewhere. Testimony in the case revealed that there was some confusion among the authorities over how to interpret the regulation. One official testified that the regulation applied only if the parties had sex at least once a week. Another official testified that sex every 3 months was sufficient, and still another placed the frequency at once every 6 months. Okay, so basically just saying the man would just come up there and dropping off that D and nothing else, and he couldn't do it allegedly as far as those months. 6 months at a time, 3 months at a time, or once a week, you can drop off that 11. You know what I'm saying? CIA, as per documents released through the FIA, flooded the streets with guns and drugs as means of genocide that backfired when the drugs filtered into the suburban neighborhoods. Correct. And that's exactly what I'm tapping into. We must be on the same wavelength, Black and Gina. You know what I'm saying? So think about, once again, what this does to you psychologically now. If you want, now jobs are not available for blacks a lot of jobs would be some low-end jobs or some other bull-ish. You feel me? So here comes the government that comes in and says, hey, we can give you this, but you can't have that. You can't have a man occupying the house as a substitute father, anything like that. He can't contribute nothing but that D. That's how I looked at it. You know what I'm saying? So when you've got the man not in the house, the children are in disarray because you need that father in your life. And I'm going to stop right there, okay? Because, Josh started, because I'm about to get on the road. I'm getting towards the closing of this right here, all right? To reach it 2020, and I'll close out. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. I appreciate y'all still listening. Please continue to share this. All right, please. And I'll be back in about a minute or so. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Check it out. It's free. What? And we like free. No way. And they also have tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Okay. Anchor will do all the work for you. No. So it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other media outlets. What? You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hey everybody, Eddie George here. I just want to encourage you to shop at local small businesses like Dollar City in Nashville, Tennessee, your neighborhood convenient dollar store providing various brands and different products. They need your support. We got to go support them during times like these. Check them out. They do an exceptional job. Support our small businesses. Thank you.
G Street Quick Draw Gun Magnet. Unlike the competitor who imitated and sell similar products with more expensive prices, G Street Gun Magnet Mount is specially designed and engineered to provide you the safest and most convenient experience.
Do you want to access your guns quickly in case of an emergency? Do you feel safe in your car and at home? Do you want to be able to hold your guns for any different situation? After our research, we have redefined our gun magnet mount for the market to solve any complaints from gun fans. We have designed and redesigned our magnet mount, which is made from premium, eco-friendly material, excellent craft, unique appearance with quick draw and quick load functions, and hold flat surface firearms safely and secure.
Order your G Street Quick Draw Gun Magnet today with free delivery at gstreetedc.square.site.
Look, I suggest that you fall in line and show me my respect. I'm the best. None of y'all a threat. This is not a test. I'm upset. Come around here, I'll make you stand on all your threats.
What up, everybody? It's your boy Royce the Voice on Click on the latest side of the K-Team Speak About to Lose Your Mind, and we are back. And see, Black says the 4 Ds or whatnot. I'm gonna leave that out for closing on that. Yes. All right. So yeah, man, I wish you can go on the. Can you copy and paste that and put it on the Royce's Rant page so he can pull it up, Black? The 4 Ds. You know what I'm saying? Oh, appreciate the Gina. Appreciate the sharing. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else, please share. You know what I'm saying? This is just a brief little history lesson that I may not have all the answers to. You know what I'm saying? I got, my folks in here filling in the gaps for me, but I want everybody to go and research this, because this is not just for Black people. This is for everybody. I just want y'all to understand what's really going on. Tell them to throw their, so everybody, throw your fist in the comments. I'm feeling that right there. I feel that. I'm feeling that, man. Throw them fists in the comments if you hear me. You know what I'm saying? Black fist, white fist, you got a red fist. You know what I'm saying? I just want you to feel me and want you to feel what's going on here and try to understand where we're coming from. We're not fussing. We're not asking for anything or special treatment. It was really just acknowledgement and understanding. But I'm going to get to my point here, because I'm trying to bring it back to the family thing. So once again, you're having these psychological effects. Once again, losing our Black leaders, right? We're losing our men. We're losing our Black men. And I was actually watching something earlier the other day, where a guy went into to New Jersey and was talking to, several baby mothers and stuff like that. Kids, Black men and Black kids, young Black men and women at 14, 15, 16 year old having kids, and having 3 of them by the time they're 21 or 23 years old, and how they talk down about each other. It was the craziest thing. You know what I'm saying? The craziest thing, how they were talking bad about each other and not wanting to get married. But it was that Black woman, at the end of the day, to still have that love. And it was like, I love him. I know he loves me. He just ain't getting it right. But, I don't want to teach my daughter the same thing. But what eventually happens is it gets passed on from generation to generation. So you got no father figure in the house. And we all know when there's no father in the house is in disarray. The house lacks discipline, because keeping it real, mothers cannot be fathers. They can be the best that they can be, but naturally they're women and they're going to nurture. So the moment that they try to step in a man's place, it's a little unorthodox. And I feel that confuses the child. You can test me on that. Do your own research, but the proof is in the pudding. All right. So now the government, the powers that be, find another way, once again, to separate the family. So now the father is not in the area, right? He can only come around to get some good loving. Y'all seen that movie Claudine with James Earl Jones on there and my girl on there? Y'all watched that movie? Perfect example. She had kids on kids on kids. And they had to hide that man because he was over there visiting and stuff like that. That's real talk. That happened in the 70s. Okay? So these are the times of our big brothers and big sisters. Right? Okay. So then this is what happens psychologically. Now the black woman is thinking that they don't need a man in their life. Right? Because the moment you come around, hey, don't come around here. I'm going to lose everything that I got. If you come over here, the child protective services, all that good stuff, and they're getting on us about discipline our children and stuff like that. I'll talk about that a little later. You know what I'm saying? This may hit the 2-hour mark. I'm sorry, but this is what it is. But so the man is out of the house. All right. We got this Welfare Reform Act going on. Jobs are at, some of the lowest that it's ever been in the 70s. Check that out. Everything was going on in the 70s. You know what I'm saying? The economy was low. The embargo, oil, all that was going down. You know what I'm saying? So there's only one thing to really kind of do, when you can't get a job, right? You're going to have to hit them streets. Perfect timing for all those drugs to come in from the CIA. We're going to trickle down into the 80s. Shout out to Ronald Reagan. You know what I'm saying? That everybody want to talk about Reaganomics, so the economy was good then. Do you know why the economy was booming in the 80s? Because of that crack cocaine. That Nicaraguan trade, when we were trading weapons for that dope and putting them out there on the West Coast, and it just spread it like wildfire. You feel what I'm saying? It actually did what they didn't expect it to do. They were just trying to keep it in one location, and then that junk just spread it into other neighborhoods. That's how that happened. You know what I'm saying? Now you've got our fathers that are already not in the home. Now they're drug dealers. Now they're addicted to drugs and crack and cocaine, and possibly creating more kids, which they call us crack babies, the kids of the 80s and stuff like that. You feel what I'm saying? ADD comes through, ADHD comes through, all that stuff. They're getting these medicines, Ritalin and stuff like that, blase, right? Okay. So now we're fast forwarding here into the 80s. Once again, the black family is broken up. Now in the black family's mind, when it comes to the woman, now she feels like she don't need a man now. It just becomes a habit now to get you a baby and then get you a check. And we can't lie and act like that doesn't happen today. It's almost like our women, our black women, don't desire to have a nuclear family because they have been trained by seeing it through their mothers, seeing it through their grandmothers, great-grandmothers, all the way back to 1619 to not count a man for nothing. Now we're trusting the government to aid us in what we need, limiting us on how many hours we work just so we can get that certain amount of money to keep it afloat. And so you have our black men being incarcerated, petty crimes being boosted up for years on and years on for no reason. At some point, you get, what did Jeezy say? You get more time for selling coke than murder at times because they knew cocaine was jumping, right? But guess who was making that money off of all that? White supremacy, the powers that be, the CIA were getting that cheese off the top, letting our fathers and stuff like that, grandfathers and uncles and stuff like that, accumulate all that money for them, and then they pop them and then they go to jail. So once again, we have a high incarceration rate with black men, and the kids are left at home again. Y'all need to watch that movie South Central. Pretty good movie. Perfect example of all that stuff that's going on. So once again, the mothers are left once again with their kids. Now these school systems, let's talk about the prisons real quick. Within these prisons, at some point, at some time, people that are thrown in prison, there's a big check to come in with everybody that's in prison, somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 a head for every person that they put in jail. And you tell me jail is big business. It is a business, and they're building more private sectors as we speak, which lets you know This is systemic racism. Okay? And I'll get to this nuclear family here. So now you got the fathers out of the house. Now you got the fathers and stuff in jail. Now you're telling these black women's kids and other kids that they have a problem. They have ADD or ADHD or there's something wrong with them. Now you put them in classes like special ed. And there's really nothing wrong with them. It's just the lack thereof at their homes. That nuclear family is broken and the mother can only do so much. So each kid that you're putting in special ed, you're getting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Once again, another money-making method. Putting these kids in special ed, which technically I call it like a holding place until you go to the state prison. School to prison pipeline. I guess that's what we can call it. Gina said the things that the white community refuses to acknowledge. We own no planes, no distribution warehouses. Yes, we don't own any poppy fields, all of that. So how did it infiltrate into our communities? Exactly. That's true. We're just trying to tell you guys where it comes from. It's not like you did it. You feel me? We're trying to make you understand that how this happened, to acknowledge that. Because until you acknowledge it and admit that it happens, only then we can formulate this plan. Otherwise, to keep it real, black people are going to start formulating their own plans and having their own. That would just be common sense. Not because they're just like, we hate everybody, we just gonna do it ourselves. It's like, no, it's this systemic thing that's happening. It's forcing us to be like, well, I guess the only people we can really count on is ourselves. And I'm trying to get you guys to understand that. You feel what I'm saying? So here we go. We're getting a little close over here into the, to the 2000s and stuff like that. So they give us more restrictions, right? Putting us in special ed, which that's a school to prison pipeline, because I've taught in the school system for 2 years in special ed here in Tullahoma, and half of these children ain't got nothing wrong with them in their head. There's just something going on at home. And I realized that the father is not home. I had to deal with more children as far as discipline than learning. These were some smart kids in the special ed classes. But when I would take them home, I would see that there was not a father in the home. And in some cases, not a mother in the home. It's grandmama, poor old grandmama raising the kids. She's getting old. She's got high blood pressure and diabetes. She can't move around. It's hard for her to discipline these young, wild, and crazy kids out here. You feel what I'm saying? So you got kids running wild. So the next thing for them to do is get drugs, go to drugs, get addicted to drugs, which is happening in Tullahoma, and they're going to jail. The destruction of the family, destruction of the black family. That's what's happening. Started in 1619. Do you see what I mean? The psychological effect, it was one thing after another. As time progressed, they added more things to effect. So now they take prayer out of school. They take discipline out of school. You feel what I'm saying? So to the point to where like the teachers are afraid of the principal. The principal is afraid of the school board or the superintendent. The superintendent is afraid of the board. The board is afraid of the parents. The parents are afraid of the children. And then children ain't worried about nothing. Children ain't even scared. Because ain't nobody regulating. You feel what I'm saying? So now you get punished for getting caught, maybe disciplining your children. And I know people have different situations or opinions on that, but you have to discipline your kids. But when your kids ain't afraid of nothing, where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? You understand what I'm saying, y'all? And so now we coming in here to like 2020, where this same situation has happened here. And I'm going to make it hit home here in Tullahoma because that's where I'm at. And then that's who I'm now talking to. This is where I live, and I'm speaking to you guys. And with our black families here in Tullahoma, these lower income communities here in Tullahoma, from Dawson to Ada Frale, to Eastgate, to Tullahoma Village, to Cedar Lane, all these areas, these low income areas. I want to tell you guys that this is what's been happening. It's been happening for so long that it has become second nature to you, that you think this is the way of life. And I'm calling out to all the other leading blacks out here Okay, yeah, do that. Send that trailer over there in the comments. Okay, no doubt. I'm speaking to all the leading blacks out here and stuff like that are in your own communities and stuff. I know Nino's doing this thing up there in Nashville. You know what I'm saying? But there's not too many black people here in Tullahoma. It's only a 3.5%. But I'm speaking to these black families saying that we are being too content. I realize the state that you're in. And I'm going to say we, as in me too, because I'm not free until y'all are free psychologically, to know that there's something greater out there. And we need more leaders in the community to help do that, because as many conversations that I've had with city officials here, I'm never going to get through to them. And that's just keeping it real. It's something that I don't feel they're never going to understand, because I don't feel that they want to understand, because they were not psychologically affected. Okay? This was passed on. So when you tell me or others to get over it, that's not fair to say that with a lack of understanding. And even if you did understand, you would not tell us to get over it, because it's still happening. And you tell us that everybody is created equal. You tell us there's no such thing as systemic racism, and you're lying, because I feel like you know it. And that's just being real. For anybody that doesn't think like that, that doesn't have malice in their heart, I want you to understand the state of mind that our black men and women are in. Sure, when a man gets out of jail, they say, well, go get a job. Okay, let's just say they do get a job, right? Even though it's hard coming out of jail to get you a job, you can go through the temp service and stuff like that. You still can't vote. You get a job, but you still can't vote. You get a job, you pay taxes on that job, but you can't vote. You're getting taxed without being represented. Taxation without representation. How can you get a job coming out of jail, but then they won't allow you to vote? I wonder why. Let's think about that for a minute. Now, I know there's some opportunities. Actually, I just heard of myself last year. Shout out to Noah Bivens that was telling me this. Like, there are some ways to get certain things expunged. You know what I'm saying? I think with nonviolent crimes or something like that. But a lot of our lower income people in those communities and black people, they don't know these things. And so when I speak to our politicians about this and they say, well, yeah, let's do this, it's right. Okay. Well, I'm calling you out again to all our city officials. If you're really for real about it, bring something to these communities to where they can learn. Because when you tell us to seek knowledge and you shall find, yes, that's kind of cliche. But when people are in an environment, when they're a product of their environment and that's all they know, they're not going to seek anything that may be beneficial to them, because the life that they lived in those communities is beneficial to their mind. In their mind, they think that's beneficial. There's nothing else out here. They keep dropping off this dope, and I'm going to keep selling this stuff. I'm going to keep overdosing on this stuff. Simple as that. But if our politicians are not going to do that, then we as a community are going to have to bring these people in those communities and educate our children, mentor our children, mentor our women, mentor our men. And I want to speak to the families and say, you are hurting us by walking away from your family. You're hurting us by creating these children and you're not raising them properly. I'm speaking to the men and the women, specifically our black men and black women. You are hurting us. You are hurting us when you're overdosing. That's a father lost. That's a mother lost. And the child is left with the state for neglection or abuse. I'm trying to get you to understand that we don't have to be in this state. We have the abilities to do these things on our own, but we also have to have leaders within the community that are willing to educate our children in these lower communities. I'm begging the Board of Education in Tullahoma to consider incorporating Black history into the school systems. But if that can't happen, then we would have to do that ourselves, because our Black kids need heroes too. They need an equal amount of people to look up to inspire them that looks like them. We don't want our Black children here in Tullahoma to think that the only way to make it in Tullahoma is if you play football, or if you play baseball, or run track or basketball. We want them to know that they can prosper in the arts. They can prosper in the medical field. They can prosper in the law enforcement. That they can do that. I'm kind of getting off subject here, but then I'm not. But to reiterate, this drug problem here in Tullahoma, the way the police are acting and what they're doing in Tullahoma, our Black fathers and our Black mothers, what you're doing in Tullahoma, you do a lot of talking, but you go back to the same thing. And I'm calling out all our leaders out there and in this area that we have to come together and we have to do this stuff ourselves in our communities. Because the more that we start to argue with our city council and our politicians, it's all going to be a bunch of talk back and forth. And therefore nothing gets done. I'm a victim of that, of talking back and forth, trying to make people understand this is that, this is that, this is that, we need to do this, we need to do that. No, I realize myself that that doesn't work. When we have resources ourselves, all of our athletes that have went off and got millions and hundreds of thousands, come back to these communities and help. I'm not saying you have to live here, but I'm saying contribute. With diversity councils, we don't have to worry about the government. We can do this stuff on our own. That's our problem. Every time we depend on the government, they let us down and they put us in another debacle. And something else that we have to point the finger at them for what they did, but really we were asking for their help in the first place. But once we realize the power that we have as people, that we can do these things, and our Black families here in Tullahoma being content and not voting and not putting proper people in the place to make this town flourish. This town, little town, has all the potential in the world to flourish. We got a railroad running smack through the middle of the town. We got the widest city in the world, Atlantic Street. We have Black history here. We have CD stamps. You know what I'm saying? We have the first Black woman, let alone Black person, on the board in the art center. We can express those things through that. We can express our things through other parts of education. It doesn't always have to be sports, but it starts with these Black families. So the next kid you decide to have, or maybe something on accident, you think about that, young man. You think about what you're doing and what you're bringing into this world, or what you're leaving, or what you're doing to that woman. Women need to demand more from men. Higher expectations. Don't settle for anything less. We're going to have to step up ourselves. But like I said, as people being a product of their environment, it's going to take people that are outside that environment to help. It's going to take people that are inside that environment that have an open mind and decodes the matrix and can help. Don't just sit back. Don't sit back and let this happen, because we're just going to keep going back and forth and back and forth. If our government won't do it, then the people need to. And until you realize that, yes, we're going to be in that same rut. And closing out on this a little bit, when Nino was talking about the Black leaders and stuff like that. With Black leaders, you know, back in the day, Black leaders were the shit. But now what is happening is they turn Black leaders into deceitful people. I'm not going to name any names out there, what the media has put in front of us. But now the media are giving us Black leaders working for the media. But what we need here in our communities are leading Blacks, right? Like leading Blacks. We need leaders that the community cultivates. Your children, raise them to be young kings and queens and to treat people with respect and to educate yourself, learn your surroundings, be something great. You can do that, but it does take a village. We need more leading black people in the black communities. The Chinese people do it. They're prospering. They have their businesses. Even the Latinas and Latinos have their own businesses and stuff. Right there on Jackson Street. You feel what I'm saying? Nolensville. You might as well call that Mexico Central. Nolensville Road. Black know what I'm talking about. Nobody says anything when other races come together or have their own business or have their own neighborhoods. We are the only race that spend our dollar elsewhere, that work elsewhere. You can have your own job. You can start your own business. And we do have to support each other in that. The little businesses that we have here in Tullahoma, there can be a lot more because there's a lot of smart individuals out here. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah, who've made it? They walk away from the fail. Yep, they suffered post-traumatic slavery mindset. They're afraid they'll lose favor with the white counterparts. I've got an aunt there in Tullahoma that could do that doesn't, and that is a disgrace. I understand. That's definitely right. And that's all we're trying to say. Like, I'm not, this ain't, politicians be coming to me talking about what you're doing is divisive. You are dividing the people. Why? Because I'm speaking up or other people are speaking up and they're realizing that shit is not really getting done when we're coming to you and asking you, hey, can you see this is happening? Can you tell us what we need to do? And you tell us, seek and you shall find. No. And I'm sorry. No. And so as I close here, we're out of here in about 10 minutes or so, kind of at this point, I'm slick kind of tired of asking. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. He's putting it up on there, and I appreciate that. I think he's gonna put the 4Ds on there if he copy and paste it. Oh no, Summer, I ain't worried about no emojis, man. I try not to, they ain't I ain't worried about that. It's all good. I just hope that you're learning something, and I hope that you can pass this along to your counterparts. You feel what I'm saying? We have to get our power back. We have to take our power back. I've seen so many talented kids here in our area. In Tullahoma and Winchester, so talented with music, so talented with building shit. You know what I'm saying? So talented in what they're doing, and they're always directed to do something else. You feel what I'm saying? I'm not even asking for people here in Tullahoma or black students, black men and women to hop into politics here. I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying at least learn about your city, learn about what's going on in your town. Who knows? You could be the next black mayor. Who knows? And I say that not in a divisive way when people say, oh, we always got to say black this. Well, after what we just talked about this last hour and a half, I think you would understand why black people say the first black this or the first black that, because we have everything that we have had was always taken away in some type of form. So yes, it is a little prideful to say the first black to do this because we weren't considered human beings throughout this time. Technically, 3/5 of a human being. Or if a white person back then married somebody that was of another color, all they had to do was have 1/8 or more of another color, Japanese, Chinese, black, and it would be unlawful to marry that person. I went back a little bit, but trying to keep your mind on psychological effects and then how it's affected our families. Yeah. Let me read what my guy said. Okay, I'm gonna put it up on there. Okay, so I'm gonna copy and paste this. I believe this was from Nino. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna copy and paste this on here, y'all. Oh, it ain't gonna fit. Oh, it ain't gonna fit. Okay. So African American media mogul Byron Allen says it out loud on online. He breaks down what we call the 4Ds of oppression for the black community, explaining how easy it is for those who hold the power and pull the strings over the nation's economical purse are making sure that people of color have no stake in their brand and no say in their representation. So even though it won't fit on here, I would advise anybody, I'm gonna put it right here, to Google this right here. You just have to type in Byron Allen and the 4 Ds. I'm gonna put it right through there. That is a lot black. It won't let us put it all in there. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna put it right there. This is from Nino Black. But no, just in closing, speaking to the community here in Tullahoma, lower income communities in Tullahoma, the black families here in Tullahoma, we have a lot of work to do. And if you're willing to do it, you know, then let's do it. And for anyone else that has it in their heart to acknowledge that and understand, and if you have resources that can help these kids, that can help these parents, you know, I'm pretty sure there's some programs out there, but some of our rehab programs here in Tennessee is whack as hell. Some of these rehab programs that I know for sure, you know, I have friends that went to rehab over there off on 32nd in Nashville, where that rehab place is in the middle of the hood. So the drug dealer can come right at the back door and drop them off. Next thing you know, boom, it start all over again. You feel me? These rehab places is not shit because they're not getting over anything. They're coming back and doing the same thing. They're coming back and they're almost dying. And so I'm calling out our preachers. I'm calling out our pastors out here in Tullahoma. What are you doing? Because church is not inside. It's out here. The church is just a building. The real church is out here. Church is a body of people. It's not a building. So when you step out into the world, this is your church. If they don't go to your church, who cares? They're people. And they may need your help. But you may not help them because they're not a member of your church. Or they don't put nothing in the collection plate. Yeah, I'm saying that. And that's the truth. That is the truth. You can't call yourself a black leader when you're only tending to a specific group of people. You have to deal with all of them because they all need help. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I hope I didn't take up anybody's time. I hope that as you watch this, you've gained some type of insight on everything that has happened in these past 300 years. I hope for the people to say, get over it. I hope that you go back and you look at some of these pinpoints and expand your mind, look at it a little more. There's a lot more. I just scratched the freaking surface. Okay. Shout out to Gina, shout out to Nino Black, shout out to Walter. I see y'all on my other pages, stuff like that, Summer and all that. Matt Sweeten, Ronald Brown, you know, because I'm seriously tired of people arguing with me and others on you guys telling us that everybody is the same. Everybody is equal. Everybody has the same opportunity. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. And that's just the truth. We got to erase that. We got to take that veil off our eyes and see the truth for what it is. I think the only thing that I'll honestly ask is for the BOE to consider it. We have a black educator at the BOE. And his name is Sidney Hill. I know, I'm calling out names. That's just what it is. We need more representation. Our kids need to learn about our history. And that's just what it is. And you don't do that, you're being a disservice to yourself. And I'm telling myself this. I'm talking to myself. But I'm hoping I'm talking to others too. And it's time to wake up. It's time to get off these hard-ass drugs. You're killing yourself. You're killing me. You're killing people you don't know. You're killing your kids. You're killing your husband. You're killing your mothers. And we need more people in our communities here in Tullahoma and anybody else that's in any other town or city. It's time for us to step that up and outreach and have church out here. That's where the 20,000 people can't fit in one church unless you're somewhere in Dallas somewhere. You know what I'm saying? With all them other big mega churches. But 20,000 people can't fit in either one of these churches that are around here. Be lucky if you get 500. Okay? And that's all I'm going to say about that. I hope you guys got something out of this. To my white counterparts and everything, I hope that you understand that I ain't mad at y'all. Not mad at all. I'm mad at what has happened. You may not have had control over it, But see, you're contributing by acting like you don't know. And that's all. So to all my people that are listening, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate that you're sharing. I love all of you. I hope you remember what I said. I hope that we can get involved in our communities. Our men and women get off these drugs. Think about your children. Think about what you're doing. And that's all I'm going to say about that, okay? And in closing, I'm your boy, Royce the Voice. Orange Click, Orange Leaders. Shout out to K-Team. Speak your thoughts or lose your mind. And we out.